Yes. Yeah, it's on. Okay, they're going to be on in a minute, but hang on, let me get this. Okay. Yeah, so I'm excited to hear about this. Now you're in Colorado Springs or just south of it? Is that what you said?
Yeah, no, we're in it.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
in it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've been feeling Denver. I've been feeling it. Feeling like I want to head up that way, check it out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go up to Durango and up towards what is it, Grand Junction or
Hmm.
yeah. I like the mountains.
I do too.
Couldn't live without
But
Yeah. I
how do y'all find frogs in the mountains?
them.
You find the shaman who has the frog.
Oh man, let's give it another 45 seconds or so. Um, yeah, it was a great story. I don't think did we talk about how y'all met? We just talked about when y'all met. I got to hear this. I just
Yeah.
remember. Let me just refresh my memory. Um, yeah, you got together and you kind of started waking up through your experience that you had, and you were telling him things, and he was like, "Okay, if that works for you, I'm
Yeah.
good with it. I love you," and and then something shifted, and I think it had to do with the frog, animal medicine. But yeah, yeah, and welcome
Yeah.
to the show, both of y'all. Welcome to the show. It's good to see you again so quickly, Jenny. Everybody was
Yeah.
really excited when I put up the post. Somebody said Todd didn't waste any time. No,
I
he
know. I
didn't.
saw it. I was like, yeah. And he's having a fun with being called Darren.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He stole my thunder. I was going to ask him that question. Yeah. So how did y'all meet? Was it like over a period of time, or did you have like an instant recognition, or what?
Chemistry class.
Chemistry 101.
Yeah, she needed a laugh.
Yeah. I had a boyfriend who was just driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And he's like, and basically he said something to me like, I guarantee you I can make you laugh. And I'm like, whatever, right? He takes a piece of paper and he draws this big X on the piece of paper. And we're in lecture. This is, basically the first week of college. And he headbangs it like really loud. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. I'm just done. Because, for us, I mean, with everything, laughter has been our key through it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you make me laugh, and I could be really mad at you, and it's done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, it breaks the
So,
illusion,
yeah,
really, because if it's genuine, it's innocent. It's the truth frequency.
yeah,
Yeah. Just kind of
yeah,
breaks the illusion. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's worked for many years now.
So that's what, 20 years, something like that.
20, well, married 28, we've known each other for 30.
Wow. He
Yeah.
didn't waste any time either.
No, no, we didn't waste any time. I mean, but it was, because then we were friends for a little bit,
Uh,
and then that was September when we met, and then our first date was in December, and I just remember coming home from our first date, and my mom was like, "How was it?" And I said, "It was good. I'm gonna marry him." Like, and she was like, "Okay." So yeah,
I have
so
that.
you
I
have that.
have that effect. I love this guy. He's hilarious.
I know.
Uh, yeah. So you had I guess, first half, second half. You had first half is, pre wake up, where you're at now. And then, of course, with what you went through and everything. It sounds, I was going to say, when was the first time you spotted some magic or something that was paranormal? But I guess it was when he banged his head on the desk.
Yeah.
And
You
when
know,
you came home and told your mother you're going to marry him.
right? Like we just knew.
Yeah.
Because I think the first time he asked me to marry him was that March. I said no, but asked me again. And then he asked me again, like, what, a year or so after that? Yeah.
I had to get past the terror of your parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of those, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just, you just never knew. And even after we got engaged and everything was going well, My dad was a charter boat captain. And so he would take Danny and put him in the bilge of the boat to clean it out. And he'd come up just covered in oil and like, ugh. And, and then, like, it was just my dad's way of being like, you want to be with my daughter? This is what you have to do. Yeah,
Well, at least he didn't have to bring 2 cows, 3 goats, and 5 chickens.
that's true.
That was
That's
his.
true.
That was his dowry
Right,
exchange.
right. In the exchange.
Uh,
But then, gosh, we were married for what, 10 years or so? Maybe not even that. And then we moved to a farm. And so that's when I got all the cows, the goats, the chickens,
oh
and
wow.
the things like that and put him through that. Like we were laughing just overlooking at all the crazy stuff that our life, the turns and the twists and the just the insanity over the last 30 years.
Wow. And then you
Yeah.
had to go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
She's a hard person to get used to because she's ever changing.
But
Well, she's always shape shifting.
right,
It doesn't get boring.
it doesn't
Not at
get
all.
boring. I mean,
So I know you had the big ordeal, and it was a
yeah,
huge one, right? It was
yeah,
huge. Um, I guess I know at some time during that you started to have these experiences. I think you said you kept it to yourself for a couple
yeah,
of years.
yeah.
Did you see Danny? Did you see any sign of it before she told you anything? Was anything going on intuitively, or just you know?
No, I mean, the first, I think she had mentioned in your previous talk, the first time that I ever noticed anything was in the nursing home. And I attributed what she was saying and what she was feeling to the drugs she was apparently having an adverse reaction to. She was basically telling me that alongside of her bed was all of her, you know, animals that she's had throughout her life. Um, and, you know, and I'm witnessing her actually having conversations. To me, there was nobody there. Um, After the incident with the nursing home and basically moved away from that, I I wasn't aware of anything. It Nothing was really brought to my attention, or at least into my field, so that I registered in a way that I could. Um, and I'd come home from work, you know, have conversations with her. She'd tell me a lot of things, and some things just didn't make sense to me. But you know, we were going through a healing process, and all that I knew is each day was looking better than the day prior. So there's a lot of unknown that was being stirred up, but it wasn't really scaring me off, and it really wasn't something that was sinking in that was out of the ordinary. It was just kind of the mind adjusting to what life was handing each one of us. So
Wow.
didn't seem out of the ordinary for me. So
Wow. And you loved her all the way through it.
I've been married to 8 different women. Just only got to the wedding part one.
Not
That's
Yeah,
only
so,
her human aspects.
right.
yeah. You know, it's nice to know that you know, in the beginning it really didn't make any sense to me. Now I can look at what steps she's taken in her life and how far she's gone in what gifts she has, and there's no way that I can question them. I can
Yeah.
absolutely say I don't see, I don't
Yeah.
hear what Jen does, but there's no way I can question it anymore. I had those early years to question what she was feeling, but anymore it's just to be expected that I'm on board.
All hail the toad.
Exactly.
I've had a rough start today, and I you know, you go from that deep emotion of, you know, just tears burning in the back of your head to laughing. So I really appreciate this. So what was it like after that 2 year period when you came home? The day you came home and she said, "I've got to tell you this. I can't keep this to myself anymore." Were you surprised?
Um, well, I don't know if she ever came out that directly.
I did.
Um,
Do you remember the day you came home from work? I'd been crying all day.
okay.
And you were like, "What is wrong with you?" And I told you that I had
Mhm.
seen a pair of blue eyes. Do you remember this? And then it had zeroed in, and I realized it was my grandfather sitting in the chair.
Okay.
And that was when he told me to stop relying on other people, get off my ass, and start doing my own inner work and
Yes.
start walking the path.
Yes.
Wow.
And I mean, it was so forceful, so direct. And I knew that the block I had put up, it was all coming down. And I kept saying to him, everything's going to change. Everything is going to change after this. And his response, I mean, he was confused, right? And he looks at me and goes, "Are we still going to be married?" "Yeah." And he said, "Are you still going to love me?" "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." And basically walked away. Like
Wow.
that was as much as he could. He's
Take
like,
in and handle and yeah.
Uh,
Baby steps. Baby steps.
maybe that's
I'm into Nikki's accident.
Nikki's accident.
Yeah.
This was 2014, so this was
Okay.
in the Peyton house. No, the
Okay.
Grinnell house.
So I had I think there was previous conversations that you had with me concerning things that I had seen prior to that. So I think at 2014 I may have been a little
Yeah, you were already
in
kind
to
of.
where I couldn't question anymore, and I think it started with Nikki's accident.
The one where she
The
landed in a
wheelchair.
tree?
No, Nikki's accident. As far
is
as
that your daughter that rides a broom?
Yeah.
No, this was the oldest one. So the oldest one, my dad died
Uh-huh.
of I was in my early 20s, and he died of cancer, but our oldest was 6.
Okay.
And we went to this skate-a-thon, and she was skating along, and this guy was skating backwards, and she fell, and he rolled over her face.
Wow.
And it was ridiculous. And it slit all of this open, broke all of her orbital bones. We were at the one hospital, and they said, everything they're seeing on the scans, everything like that, we were looking at reteaching her how to speak. I mean, like it was significant. It was terrifying. And I'm mad. And I am just yelling at my father. Like, it's not enough that you left, but now I told you to protect the grandkids and you didn't even do that. So I'm mad, right? And I'm just giving them hell 9 ways to Sunday. And so we got medevaced out to Hopkins in Baltimore.
Wow.
And I had all the stuff. I had all the scans. I had everything. We get there, and they redid all the tests. The bone piece that had like kind of smushed into her skull, like it had broken off and smushed in, was back out. She had stopped the seizing. Like it was, they were like, they didn't understand the scans. Like everything had changed. So the next day, he is pushing her in a wheelchair, and all of a sudden the wheelchair just wouldn't go. And he's looking like, is it the IV? Like, what is this? And she says something similar to, it's just Pawpaw. Pawpaw's here. He just wants you to know that, I'm going to be okay, and to basically tell me to stop yelling at him.
Yeah, for 12 hours straight. All I heard was her yelling at her father, who
so
wasn't
mad.
around, about how he did not protect our oldest daughter.
Yeah.
And there was definitely something that I had seen today, but it was the language that she used in explaining to me exactly what was going on in that exact moment.
Right.
That I'm wheeling this child around, a children's hospital, showing her, rabbits and different things on the wall or whatever, to just have a moment with my child, and we come to a complete stop.
Wow.
And Jen's explanation for that was truly something that had really, it wouldn't have been ever anything that I would have said. But basically, she explained it completely to me. She goes, "My father is here to make sure that everything is fine from this point forward." Well, our daughter was released from the hospital on that day. We went through all the scans that very morning. We went through neurology. The depressed skull fracture had rescinded back to normal. The eye test,
Yeah, like they were afraid she's gonna lose her
everything
eye.
that was, all the tests that were showing a basically a possibility of a negative outcome were then all positive leading. And were released, from the hospital that day. And at that moment, I absolutely knew that there was something that was that really wasn't there to be questioned.
Yeah.
The and
I'd forgotten about
yeah.
this.
So
Wow.
I had throughout our marriage together, there was simply too many things in alignment that I could not explain, and Jen could. I mean, to her, it was like, no, this is absolutely normal. This is to be expected. And so early on, I knew, when she had her convictions about something, I didn't question it.
Right.
We went and followed whatever she saw that was right for our direction as a family.
Right.
Uh, so it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. So you
So
trusted her intuition.
absolutely, absolutely. And then, when Jen had her accident, and we were facing some of the most trying times of our entire marriage, of our entire existence. I mean, we didn't know how we were going to get to the next day.
Yeah.
Day to day, there was, there was, you could think of the worst outcome possible, and we had already thought about it because that's what we were facing. We were facing a life that was never going to be normal again. Um, and to have the reaction that she did in that nursing home, um, when she basically felt she was going to be no longer of this earth, I believed her. It was terrifying. Um, so every day from that moment forward was a blessed day. Um, and so when the roles that I had, um, changed to not only the caretaker as much as I could financially for the family, but it also meant having to you know take care of Jen to whatever degree was necessary there. Every single day was better than the last day. And when she started, your blogs and everything like that, it was just anything that she could do to try to keep her sanity
Yeah.
and keep what she was feeling, what she was going through during that time period, messages that needed to be spoken. So
Wow.
it was it was overwhelming, but it was pretty pretty amazing too. It was just every day was a new growth.
When he reminded me, because there's just so much you forget. And he reminded me that during that time when the fusion failed, we had a foster kid too.
Hmm.
So not only did we have, all of we had our three, we had the neighbor's kid, which eventually became one of ours. But then on top of that, we had a foster kid,
Right.
all girls. And You know, it was like for me to all of a sudden be boom gone, and I was gone for months. That's a lot because the
Wow.
littlest at that time was 18 months.
Good gosh.
Yes, it wasn't. I mean, so when we talk about the accident that Jen was involved in and everything, it wasn't like boom, here's an accident, here's life changing. No, she proceeded with her life. She had doctors telling her all she needed was physical therapy to get back up and going. And so for 9 months, she was dragged through physical therapy without the doctors even realized she had broken vertebrae in her back. So it was every day was hard, and we didn't know how we were going to get through to the next day. Again, we were on this small little farm and had everything under the sun that you needed to take care of at that exact minute, and you just didn't know, if you were getting any help or anything like this. Well, finally, after the stint of physical therapy, she went to spine specialist,
Yeah.
and they were immediately seeking to put her under the knife.
Yeah. They
And
were like, how did
this,
this happen? You have fractured vertebrae.
yeah,
This is not going to repair
Yeah,
itself.
you would have thought that the previous doctors would have taken follow up X-rays.
You would have thought.
yeah,
But
Wow.
of there was a lot of you're overweight. You're hurting because you're overweight.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was so much of that bias. It was really
Right.
kind of interesting moving through that. And I mean, but we were little itty bitty town, very rural. I wasn't going to the bigger hospitals then. And as soon as I switched that and was going like an hour and a half away from the little farm, that's when I started getting the really good medical care.
Wow.
So
So
no
how,
shame on us. You want to see this?
so you were gone for what, 9 months?
No,
no, no,
no,
no. This
no,
was this was at home. The
Oh,
nursing
this was
home,
at home. Okay, okay, got you.
the
no,
nursing home experience wasn't until she went under the knife.
Okay.
no.
Okay,
So the
so
first one was 9 months.
yeah,
Okay, then I had the spinal fusion. I started to get better. I even had another baby during that time, right?
Hmm.
And then it was right around the time that the baby was 18 months that something went haywire and the bone graft from the first fusion came loose and sliced the cerebral fluid column, and the
okay,
cage they had collapsed, right?
yeah,
And even through that, I was so disconnected from my physical body, so disconnected. I had taken one of the kids to the doctor, and it was a family doctor, and he sees me walking, and he says, "What's going on with you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm good," Give him a smile, and he goes, "Nah," and starts doing just basic neurological testing. And he called immediately, and he's like, "I need you to get to this spine center." And I go there. They did, and they were like, "You have to go immediately into surgery." And I'm like, "Why?" And they said, "If this bone grafts any further, if it moves any further, it's going to slice your spinal cord."
Wow.
So I was in surgery with the next day,
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
right?
so it's a
It's
bit of
just
a
this story is so full of divine intervention. A divine intervention, literally. Just
Absolutely.
one after the other. I feel silly now with the question I was leading up to. I had like this chronological thing in my. I don't usually do that, but it just would make sense to me with a couple too, especially going through this. The way you have. One half and then the other half, because people talk a lot about shadow work,
Hmm.
and I know you talked about it when you were talking about, you know, that's basically what you were doing.
Yeah.
And then when Danny came in, I think you mentioned something about, well, he was starting to do his work or something like that. But I was just curious, from y'all's journey, how you handled your shadow work individually and as a couple. But now that you tell me this whole story, I mean, energetically, even though there wasn't, I'm sure there were moments. There were tough moments. I mean, there had to be, just probably almost all the time. It was almost like you did everything up front. Did you have to go through some of the traditional stuff once you got back, on your feet, and as you continue to progress, that everyone works on inner child, inner teenager, masculine, feminine, and all that. Did you do it together? Did you talk about it?
I talk a lot. So yes, we talked about it. Because there's just been huge like things. There's been huge things that I'm working on,
Mm.
right? And so I'll talk to him about them, and I seem to be able to like verbalize it. And then there may be something in his life that comes in that's kind of similar in some way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's different. Like we process so differently.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like themes that we could be going through.
Right. Right. Like collective things. That's
Yeah,
talked
like we
about a
both
lot.
could be working on like self-worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how it looks for me and how it looks for him are completely
Yeah.
different. But it is the same exact programming, same exact theme.
Well, just thinking back to a lot of the couples I've talked to, sometimes he didn't come, but we would be talking about their life. I'd be talking about their life with the feminine, uh, and I can remember a lot of them saying directly and kind of uh, implying that the same thing. Like she's very connected to the intel, can verbalize it. Is sensitive to the personal part and the collective because it kind of there's a theme or whatever. And then I remember several of them remarking that he does it. He just does it his way. Like almost, and the ones because I would ask some of them is what's your husband like, and they'd say, well, he's awake, he doesn't know it. He's just like this intuitive being. He just kind of instinctively goes through things.
Yeah.
And I always noted the way that there was a difference. There was a difference, which is kind of strange because the women's intuition, you would think, you know what I mean? Because their descriptions of it were he's intuitive, and yet she's verbalizing it, which is more of the human part, right?
Yeah. Well, I would say he honestly he can say something so that I flip into neutrality just like that. Because I tend to be like a polarized person, right? I tend to be like, oh, something is this way. And he'll be like, but wait a minute, what if it's like this? And then instantly I'm like, you're right. And then it's bizarre. I don't have that ability.
I do feel like I have different angles to see things than Jen does, and whether that's masculine against feminine or just the fact that uh, my plane of existence is so much more grounded here than Jen's is. But I do what I can to always have her look at a different side
Yeah.
to whatever she's seeing because I can't process everything that she's able to process. And a lot of times that is both feminine as well as her ability to, bear witness in a different, you know, way of looking at things than I can.
Right. Right.
But I learned long ago, hey, the best way that I can stay active in her life is to basically just try to read my own thoughts instead of always relying on you
Right.
know
Right.
her. So
That's a powerful statement, but a natural state. I mean, a natural feel to it, right? I mean, that's the way it should be. Still, individual sovereignty, individual power. Yeah.
I mean, I think, it's always been, I've always been the dreamer, right? Always kind of up in the clouds. And he's been this grounding force. Like I've always said, like if I have a vision, I can just tell him what I want and he builds it.
Yeah.
And in whether that's literal, he'll build me something because he's a contractor, or figuratively, he builds something.
Right.
And it's always been that balance. And it's interesting now that he too is on the medicine path. It's not that balance has changed because trust me, he was just downstairs today finishing up the bathroom so that it's easier for us to host and, you know, do some of the Kembo work. So he still is literally building, but it is different. It's like now, I don't know how to describe it. Now it's like the space that's being held it's huge.
Yeah.
It's really huge. Whereas before it was very direct, very just, I don't know, solid, one dimensional, and now it's like
Yeah.
thousands. Yeah.
Does that coincide with like the summer? Because, you know, in these communities, there's always those various narratives, and then as time's gone on, they start to like converge, and people's information seems to be telling the same story. And one of those stories is kind of like beginning around this summer, that prior to that, the feminine energy had fully anchored after all these years, and then the third energy had fully anchored after all these years, and now the masculine was really coming into form over, I guess, June, July, August, September, October, and now we're to work in tandem, I guess, is what some of the narratives out there say. God, I was going to ask you something else about that. I can't remember now.
I mean, I would say, yeah. I think now there's more of a we.
Right.
Like, we are going forward with this work. We are creating this. Where, as before, it's just like he was definitely
I filled my
my
role
builder.
before. Yeah. I mean, being able to essentially enter into what Jen's work is based on is pretty, I mean, there's absolute reward every day in thinking about what is next expected of me. Because, as far as awakening, I can only come to appreciate where my place is in what we are trying to develop. I don't see the end, as far as where us together is going to lead to, on our healing path, as much as she was able to see it. But each and every day is just a new day towards a brighter, happier existence. And if that means that I'm a part of what she's building, I am absolutely on board. Uh, my roles have changed, and I'm fully accepting them.
Yeah. He's shape-shifting too now.
I know.
Good, yeah, to a certain degree.
No,
I don't recognize myself every day anymore.
It's around like a 50-50, but yeah.
And the so do you ever have to separate energetically, like, a lot of people talk about solitude, so necessary during these times, where just, I don't mean like for extended periods, but just where you have to, be alone, do your own thing, go fishing for the weekend or stuff, whatever,
Yes. Yeah, no, we have absolutely graced ourselves with the opportunity to walk our own separate paths.
Yeah.
And for me, I still do the boys' trips every chance I possibly can.
I'm sure they all like to sit around the campfire and hear about your life with Samantha.
The strangest thing about that is it is difficult to bring somebody new into the house that doesn't absolutely fall head over heels with Jen's abilities at reading them, knowing where their bullshit lies, and basically getting them started on their own path to a healed existence. She, I, I can't separate the woman I love from the love that I see her command in the presence of anybody. And that doesn't matter who comes into our field. Um, they, they feel her awesomeness. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, wow.
In the beginning, it was a little dicey. Like I had one of his friends, and I just so much stuff, and it's like people will tell me so much, and I'm like, we need to do something about this. I've got time now, And so the next thing you know, I'm like, I got him on the couch, and I'm doing a full soul retrieval on him, and he's bawling.
And I got the other guys outside trying to basically
Oh my God. You work fast.
Jen got him. He's okay. We're throwing cornhole outside.
He's wailing. His guy's wailing inside like she's beating him. Those primordial, like she.
It is. It is everything that you could possibly imagine. It is.
But I mean, the next time we saw him, and it was all like this grouping of friends, he had massive PTSD from the war, and that had gotten better. He was able to function. He wasn't drinking as much. Like everything had shifted just in the next time that we saw him, and so all the other guys saw that too. Right?
So they're all your clients now.
A lot of them have been worked on yet.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd have a choice hanging around your house.
But I mean, when you can see the shift, you can see the change. And, it's not like I go up to someone and say, here's what I see. They're word vomiting on me.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
that's when I'm like,
Yeah.
I can walk through this door.
I get introduced to a new side of any friend that I introduce to my wife.
Wow.
It's that simple. There's no way that I can get to the depths of a person in the ways that Jen has the ability to, and it doesn't come from her overstepping bounds or anything. People see something in her eyes or resonating from her that just has them opening up to a level that is not anything that I can completely make sense of, and it's not purely the feminine,
No.
not at all, because I mean it's a wild and crazy adventure whenever I'll bring a friend into the house, and next thing you know, my wife's telling me stuff about them that is more accurate and more to the point than I've gotten in years of friendship with anybody. It's amazing how well she, gets into the reading of somebody.
It's in your
Or
soul.
how they're conveying to her
Yeah.
based on what they see from her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful.
It is.
It's good
It is.
stuff. It's good stuff.
And
So, go
He's
ahead.
like a guy's guy, right? So he's
Yeah.
a contractor, and he snowboards and he bikes. So the ones coming in are like these masculine.
Yeah. Yeah, my worst trait is trying to explain to anybody what Jen does, or I don't know. I guess along that lines. What does your wife do?
He's like, I have no idea.
We'll explain this to you. Why don't you just meet her?
She wiggles her nose a lot.
Yeah.
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 Her relatives pop in from time to time.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So, how did you take the leap? How many times had you done the animal medicine before Danny did it?
We did at the same time.
We did it at the exact same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was really watching her experience with Cambo that just absolutely intrigued me to the levels that I could help myself with it. If I had gone on the retreat and had Cambo, I wouldn't have benefited as much as I did being witness to watching her go through Cambo. So as the couple that we were kind of granted some opportunities to see other people's reaction to the medicine, in that it started with us.
Yeah.
I was brought into the room to see her wrapping up her one of her first Cambo sessions.
Mm-hmm.
She was brought into the setting for one of my first Cambo settings. And if we weren't the couple that we were, I don't think that the practitioners that we were dealing with would have granted us that opportunity. And it was, I almost felt like, because of what was being demonstrated to us and how well our bodies were taking to it, our psyche was taking to it, just how we were in it. We felt like we were granted a backstage pass. Everybody that went on the first retreat with Jen were all of her clients. So she already had a connection to each and every one of them. But it was after seeing Jen's first Cambo session and basically being able to sit with her through that integration afterwards, that I could then relate in an integration with every other person at that retreat that had just done Cambo. And it was an absolutely amazing way to begin the journey that I don't think if we were separated from each other, we would have had the same result.
Yeah.
So, she claims that she knew from the first time she had Cambo that she was going to be a practitioner. I didn't know that right away. Definitely not from my first time with Cambo, because it was rough, and I didn't know what parts of me just got ripped apart. I knew it. I knew it more being graced with the presence of other people who had just went through Cambo, sitting with them and talking about their Cambo experience. That told me that this was a journey that I was accepting and I was going to embark upon with Jen, because I felt just as captivated by the medicine. It just overcome. I mean, with gratitude for what we had just experienced.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily the dosing on me that sold me. It was the watching what it did for other people. That was so overwhelming.
Wow.
We were really lucky. We got to train together.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people saying it's not a good idea. Not a good idea for couples to train together. Training is really hard.
Does training mean taking doses and going on?
Yeah, so it's like not only do you learn how to give it, but I mean, we were doing 2-a-day doses.
2 a day.
And go to somebody else. So a lot of
8 days of extreme, really getting to know the medicine. Yeah.
Wow. So
a lot of medicine in us.
Yeah. So now you, I think when you messaged me, you said that you were getting your certification, right? Is that what you said? Okay.
Well, we're Cambo certified.
Right.
And now we're working on a BUFO certification.
A what?
Which is the BUFO, which is the TOAD DMT.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna start at some point. You're gonna be hosting Cambo. Cambo. What's that gonna look like? Is that an 8-day thing, or is that a
No. The structure of that would be utilizing Cambo to basically clear somebody and begin their process.
Okay, I got you. So it'd be like the preparation or initiation for treatment, basically.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then from there, then we could do some of the other plant medicines like psilocybin and BUFO to help people sink in further with their intentions and what they're integrating and healing.
And it's actually coinciding with the fact that on these midterm elections, there is a question on the ballot concerning psilocybin.
Is that really?
Yes, it is.
Colorado?
Yep.
Yeah, it's happening. I mean, all that stuff's coming back.
Yeah, and I mean, we have seen the effects of psilocybin in our own personal journeys, to enhance what, or actually to just open up the soul to what it needs versus where the outside world is putting a box around you. So, so for us, Cambo would be, of course, the initiation processes. And I don't mean to say it like that, but it would
Well, I
be the
mean,
start.
it's the way that
start-
you're structuring your practice. It's what
Mhm.
you're led, guided to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. This is, I think it's really cool, to be honest with you. So, like, if I were to come in, which could happen, if I were to come in and have a session, do you set an intention, or do you base it on the read that you have of the person? Is it a conversation? How does that work?
It's a full intention, and there's like it's almost like a ceremony, the intention setting ceremony, to where you really kind of dig into what is it that we're going after, and it is very much going after something. So
Right.
it could be the part of you that doesn't allow you to love yourself fully, or it could be the part of you that self-sabotages, right? It could be all of these things, and you narrow it in and you find it
Right.
through the intention setting. And then the medicine begins, and there can be, I like to work with the medicine in a way of like helping people leave their body. So the body's going through its hell, right?
What does that
you,
mean? Don't skip over that part, because I'll never do ayahuasca again. I've done it twice. I'm like, okay, I'm done.
The first thing that the body is going to go through after the neurotoxin is administered into the lymphatic system of the body.
Okay.
It's going to run its course through your lymphatic system. Your heart rate is going to go up a lot. Face is going to turn red. You're going to feel your heartbeat in your ears and your toes. At a certain point, after a couple of minutes of that, your blood pressure is going to plateau, and it's going to begin to come back down. At that point, you go flush. That's the point where a person could pass out. At that point, the medicine is reading what it needs to on a cellular level.
Yeah.
And it's targeting where it needs to go to do the most benefit. Your body starts to settle at that point. It is discomfort. I mean, it's a neurotoxin.
I just love the paradoxical quality of it. You're settling, but it's very uncomfortable.
The neurotoxin is going to find what it needs to find within your system that doesn't need to be there.
Okay.
And in most cases, it can be identified.
Now, are these physical properties or energetic? Obviously, it's going to be energy too, but
I would say it's both.
Yeah, it can be both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely both. It works on like the funk in the aura. They call it like the pania. Is that's the right word?
Pania is the word.
I'm almost thinking that's the wrong word, but like that cloud in the aura that you can sometimes get that makes it so that nothing goes right. Like everything seems like it's going wrong. It'll take care of that. Yeah. It purges you of so much stuff that's the energetic, but on the physical, it's like, I've thrown up heavy metals. I've had a green bucket, which was anger, and I was working through it. During that ceremony, what I was working on, the amount of anger that was going through my body during that ceremony was unbelievable. It was like a dragon, right? And it was like I had to feel it and acknowledge it, and then I could get it out.
So I guess you have to have a spotter when you do this, I would think.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. That is okay. So the practitioner, and my greatest gift from Cambo has been I learned how to hold space.
Yeah.
Didn't know how to before. But I'm going to be in the client's field. I'm going to be right up close to them. I can hear them breathe. I can smell them. I can hear their every motion because I'm within just a couple of feet
Right.
of
Right.
them for safety, and to also read what they're going through, to hold that space, to be there, to reassure them that everything that they're going through is pretty normal. I mean, the medicine is going to have its way with you, and it's going to cause you to purge. And that purge can be in shaking, it could be in sweating, it could
Crying.
be in crying, it could be in vomiting.
Somebody
it could
must be slipping me Cambo every day.
be-
Because I'm purging like an MF. Other than the vomiting, which is very rare for me, but
This isn't like a normal vomiting either.
No.
This is a body releasing.
so
Yeah,
this really sounds because there's different plant medicines, obviously, and a lot of people associate a plant medicine with hallucination and stuff. But
Nope.
this sounds very much, 100%. No, it's 100%, but you know what I mean. It's the body. You're cleansing. You're
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this is
Yeah.
this is a little bit different, and really, and
It is
that's yeah.
And it's like, I mean, truly, when I found this medicine or when it was really brought into my attention, I'm going through all of these downloads and this light going through this body, and I'm going, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I was having dreams that I was going to leave and be a walk into someone else's body. And I was telling him what she looked like. And I was saying, I'm coming back. I'm not going to be gone long. Nikki, our oldest, will know me. The other ones won't, and they're going to be mad that you're moving on so quickly. Like, I mean, the dreams were on point because I was like,
Wow.
this body isn't going to be able to do this. And so then it was, how do I, I just kept calling it in. How do I fix this? How do I, I've done so many different things trying to repair this body. And then the Cambo came in.
The best way that I can describe Cambo and the after effects, of course, depend on the amount of integration that's done
What is
following.
that? I'm checking this stuff out. What does that mean? The after effects.
Okay. What a person is looking for after they've sat with Cambo is, like she was saying with the Pania, to remove that dark aura that might be sitting over them, that funk, that sadness, that depression.
Right.
The best way that I can describe it, and we've all seen it over the past few years with this pandemic and everything else, Cambo has a way to eliminate the noise.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, basically, our physical being is just overwhelmed in every single angle, every single direction by some sort of noise telling us, okay, you have to do this, or you have to do this, or you have to do this in order to exist on this planet, on this plane. We have to mold ourselves to this way of thinking. Cambo basically says, oh yeah? Well, how would you like to live your life without hearing all that noise? So when I speak of integration after Cambo, there's a lot of processing that has to happen before you enter into Cambo. The first thing is you're medically vetted.
Okay.
There's a questionnaire to see if you even qualify for Cambo. There's certain conditions out there that are contra indicators. If anybody has a heart ailment of any type, they are not going to be having a Cambo session with anybody that has been properly trained, because Cambo does not do well with anybody that has any type of heart ailment. If somebody has severe mental disorder, severe, I'm not talking PTSD, I'm not talking about sadness, I'm not talking about depression, I'm talking about severe. And autoimmune. If somebody has autoimmune disorder, we're not talking about
Not like fibro.
Yeah.
or something like that. But if you've got MS or you have lupus,
Yeah, something that's
the big
I mean,
dogs
You don't want
set
Cambo
off the
to
immune
trigger.
system.
You don't want Cambo to trigger anything within somebody that could become worse by
Yeah.
doing Cambo.
Yeah.
So a person is medically vetted to see if they even qualify. Then a few questions basically tells you whether or not a person can benefit from Cambo. If they're in complete denial about where they have control over their existence, and if they cannot beat that control that something may have on them, they might not be ready for Cambo.
Okay.
Cambo requires a person to completely surrender, because that 20-minute procedure to sit with Cambo could be the worst hell that somebody has ever gone through if they can't surrender to the medicine that is doing them a benefit. If somebody goes into it kicking and screaming, saying, I don't have an ego problem, or I don't have this, or I don't have that, yeah, the medicine's going to bite, and it's gonna hurt. So when I speak of proper integration, it's in the forefront of doing the medicine, but it's also after the medicine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're to be prepared to sit with Cambo. A person is regulating their diet, okay, which means they're for 4 days prior or a week.
So like
Yeah.
going to a sweat
Going
lodge.
into it. So let's say,
Yeah, almost like an ayahuasca type
yeah,
cleanse.
you are going to do without red meat. You are going to do without dairy. You are going to do without caffeine. You are going to do without alcohol. You're
Sugar.
going to do without sugar,
Mm.
THC.
Yeah.
I'm having to check a lot of boxes here.
You got to check a lot of boxes, and there's a reason for it, because
It's called Hell Week.
yeah,
when you invited me to come and up, if I came up that way to come for a Cambo session, it sounded all fluffy.
it is. If
But
you
it,
got-
but
you
I
gotta
guess,
figure
but
what
I mean,
you're looking for.
go
What
ahead.
you're looking for. All the things that the medicine is require, that is being required of you to take out of your life for a
Yeah.
small time period
Yeah.
leading up to Cambo is for a particular reason,
Of course.
because
Yeah.
these are all vices.
You have to see your stuff.
Yeah.
These are all vices that
Well, I
allow
mean,
us
even like but you're even like internalizing. It's like you're prepared for a session. It's you're how much do you want to open your heart? Are you willing to put this stuff on the back burner for a bit and go into this fully committed? It sounds like that's another thing you probably that's what you're saying, really. You're saying we need a full commitment. And then it sounds like the part of the outcome is that clearing, the noise dies a bit. That's something associated with like psilocybin mushrooms, of course ayahuasca, and even weed to a degree, I guess. But I think the main thing is that you're advocating, or really only advocating this if you take it, you're setting a pure intention, and being 100% committed, and it's serious business. This isn't some kind of recreational thing. This is a serious thing, and I think that's the whole key with plant medicine and animal medicine. Have you had doses of the toad venom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The Bufo journey does not require as much commitment from the person as Cambo does.
Are you going to Are you going to bring in the Bufo at some point? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't quite figured out the order,
Right.
and once I work with it more, but it would be, people who want the Cambo, can qualify for the Cambo, would be like day one, and then day 2, day 3 would be working with the Bufo and then the psilocybin to really nail down more into their intention.
Yeah.
And then, and I think not so much the Bufo, but like psilocybin, people are like, oh, let's take it and run around the woods and talk to the flowers. But that's great, but it misses the point of the medicine. The point of the medicine is in.
Yeah, yeah. The point of the
Mhm.
medicine is to recognize it as a consciousness that has code, no different than a crystals or anything else. It just has its own unique specificities, right? I mean, that's the idea. This is like having a visitation or a dimensional experience, or you
Yeah,
land on another planet to sit with a master.
yeah,
This is a consciousness. They are a consciousness. They are alive, and they are just
right.
like physical remnants, maybe of our ancestors. Even you could say.
Could
Well,
be.
in all reality, that is, you have to look at where these medicines come from and where
Yeah.
their origins are in customs and traditions of civilizations that have existed for thousands of years.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, for us, one of the first things that we had to learn in our training with Cambo is the tradition of it and where it came from. How did it come into existence, and how did it help the societies that were first,
Right.
using the medicine?
I just want to know who
Uh,
the first guy was.
well,
To look. Oh,
as
Well, it was
as
actually a shaman,
yeah, as
and
legend
so
says.
mm,
the Europeans were coming over with the smallpox. The tribes were being decimated. They didn't know what to do. So one of the
w-
shamans,
was this in
they
South America or North America? South America.
south,
Okay.
took ayahuasca
Mm.
and went on a long journey and was shown the frog, the monkey frog, and how it's the prince of the jungle because no one will mess with it because of the neurotoxin will kill pretty much anything.
It has no known predators.
Right.
A
And
frog has no.
Yeah.
I mean, a toad has no known
This is
this is
this
the
is the
frog.
giant monkey
Yeah.
tree frog.
frog. Oh, the
But
monkey tree frog. Okay.
Yeah.
um,
And so, this shaman was shown in a vision how you get it into the system, how you get the medicine, mix it with your own DNA with the spit, put it on a person, and they can purge out. And that's how they kept the tribes going from dying from smallpox
Wow.
because
Wow.
it
That's
will pull
powerful.
viruses,
yeah,
right?
That's powerful.
there's an
Yeah,
absolute boost in immunity and
Yeah.
vitality. You're left after a Cambo session feeling clear. Um, each and every single time that we've ever done Cambo, you look forward to the day after.
yeah.
It is such a reward because
I mean, you're up
you,
with the sun.
you are
You have
going
more energy than
you're
you
going to
know
be
what to
up
do with.
before the sun.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're like, come on, let's go.
Yeah, the
It's,
energy that you feel is it can't be measured. Um, the properties of Cambo will wane over time, but depending on how well a person integrates it, how
Mm.
well they stick to what the medicine provided for them.
Right.
Um, if you were meant to not pick up that drink or not pick up that joint
or
or
cheeseburger.
not eat that cheeseburger, if you continue on with that path, the effects of Cambo are going to last longer than it would if the next day you decided to go party.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Right.
if you allow the noise of the world back in
Yeah.
immediately, the effects of Cambo are going to be shorter lived than they
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
if you
I
stayed.
think that's how these things work. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
uh, for one thing, they take you to a place, and it's just you,
Mhm.
right? So you have that right there clears noise. I mean, it's hard for us to find that meditation and all that, but and you're right. It's a moment. If you start to like use something excessively or too frequently, it does lose its edge. And this I forget. It's a DMT. However you break down these things, I guess what are they? Compounds, and then within that, there's a structure, a molecular structure. I was just reading about, and I never heard this before. Nutmeg oil carries the properties of some of these, whatever you call them, because I can't remember the words, but these types of things that we're talking about. And I'm talking about the chemical makeup
Yeah.
But as a natural derivative, it's the oil, and I don't know if you have to do anything special to it, but they were talking about Malcolm X, two or three other famous people that actually took this. And I guess in a way, it's like microdosing,
Mm-hmm.
psilocybin, or maybe something like this. And I'm going to read more into that because I just saw that, I think, this morning or last night. I saved
Yeah.
it. But yeah, this is, I think, a big part of, I mean, even if you see, like, like what you were talking about, Danny, that's on the ballot. I mean, I know this stuff is being put up there in like Oregon, and I told you about my other friend yesterday. I think Danny might have heard me talking about it. The lady I met from Salt Lake City that was addicted to meds, and at a young, early 20s, went to Peru, and now she's actually repping the product itself, and has gotten it into the health system in England and Canada, approved by the insurance. So you can see it's coming back, and maybe that's part of the matrix reconstruction, of the
Mm.
medical industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see in some way in the energetic field, our souls with our memories are pulling this stuff back into our lives. And then, there's people like you who've probably been using this for many, 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 many incarnations. I don't think
Yeah.
there's any mistake that you guys have gravitated to it. I just can't wait to come up there and see 12 contractor sportsmen all
Falling on a couch.
with
I
no
the first retreat that we went to, I was sitting at the edge of the table with the practitioner that had introduced us to Cambo, and it was our farewell dinner for this retreat, and everybody in the room was female. Again, their entire retreat was composed of Jen's clients, and I in conversation with him, I asked him, I said, where is the proportion of men to women on this? And he's like, it's very disproportionate. It's almost always women. And I said, we have to fix that. And for one small step, that conversation right there is what has allowed me to think that I have work to do. Because, as with the masculine, or as men, we don't always like to confront our own shit.
Yeah, we can't
we
even
like,
ask for directions.
I know, we like to bury it as deep as we possibly can, when the truth is that we all, as humans, we can benefit from just being able to work within ourselves more, instead of relying on a society to make decisions for us, to take care of us.
Hmm.
No, we exist here because we are powerful, and a lot of people just don't know that they have that power, and particularly men.
Yeah,
We just don't quite understand that we have our own abilities to heal ourselves.
right, right. Yeah, I think this is, a couple things. One, I mean, that follows the early demographics in, these communities, 212, up to maybe, I mean, I know in Soulogy it used to be 94, 6 back in like when we first established the group 2012, and now it's 68, 32 maybe. And then that most of that's occurred probably in the last, I'd say probably year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. Like there's been a big surge. Like I'm sure it was like 85, 15 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. But now and you see some other fluctuations too with young people. When I look at the different platforms we're on, they're starting to come out. Young men is interesting because the young people were basically off the graph, and now they're coming on. And if you break that group down, it's more boys and girls, right? But I think it's really interesting that in the plant medicine circle, the same thing would hold true, But it makes sense. It would make sense, I guess, because intuitively they're more connected. They're already headed that way. Plus, you have more fellowship. You know, I'm talking about, let's just say, heartfelt fellowship with women. You know, you have sisterhoods. Brotherhoods are a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I think the strength of where two are, you know, the sister link is very strong. Where with men, we've had much, well, I don't know if this is a true statement, but we have a lot of mask that, like you were saying, you can know a guy for 10 years and work with him and go hunting with him and fishing, snowboarding or whatever, and can meet Jenny in an hour and a half, and after a little bit of wailing, you find out more about him than you've known ever. That level of openness, I think, is what we're moving into, and I think that's why it's also significant, you know, what you were talking about with your own transformation, you know, because as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So I think there's a lot of good forward movement. Let's get some more Cambo out. That's,
You know, I think everybody has to have a starting point, and for us, it was Cambo, or at least for me, it was Cambo.
Yeah.
But in all reality, if every single person knows that there's something better out there for them, all that they need is to be able to reach for it. So as long as whatever they're reaching for is for their highest good,
that's
then
it. That's it.
you know,
What's the purest intention you can have but to better yourself? And he said that at 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. I'll just have you know. There are no
Wow.
mistakes. So, yeah, I really appreciate y'all coming on. I mean, I always love, you know, it's like a box of Cracker Jacks. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, we've interviewed a lot of couples, and, you know, there's some standard, you know, storylines, but yours is a really, really powerful testimony in a very, just, you know, in a matter-of-fact way, too, with a lot of humor, which is wisdom in my opinion. That's a very, you know, our truth frequency. So, but yeah, I really appreciate it. I'd love to collaborate with you again like this, or if I head up that way.
we're
Yeah,
gonna dose
come
you.
on. I don't like those Rocky Mountain oysters, but I'll do.
I can be a spotter at this point. That's all I'm gonna commit to, but I will be committing to it.
So that means we're gonna dose this one. 'Cause you always have-
I'm probably okay if I watch somebody do it first, but I don't know. I'm kidding. I don't know.
It's really not.
No, I'm kidding. But listen, all blessings to you and your beautiful family, and yeah, thank you for sharing your life and being so open, and thank you for doing the work you're doing on behalf of humanity. And hope to collaborate with you again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It was good seeing you again.
Good seeing you. All right.
All
Peace out, everybody. We'll be back with Kirsty Lee in, I think, about 3 hours.